So if your friends were to describe you, what would they say?
Intense. Very intense. Driven. Creator. Too businessy. Too much business. He likes business a lot. I started my first business when I was 21 and I'm still addicted to it. And it's just, to me, it's fun and it comes naturally and it's a thing I'm good at. So they describe me as very authentic. There's no BS at all. Blunt, clear. Never wondering whether what I'm thinking.
When have you felt the loneliest?
The loneliest? When? Gosh, truthfully, like right now is probably the most loneliest I've ever felt. Because I've never been married. I've never even owned a goldfish, you know what I mean? So I've been very much like a loner in some ways, you know? But I've had, 40 employees since I was 24 years old. So it's interesting because I feel so surrounded, by people that I'm serving. But like when I go home, it's not that way at all, right? It's like me. I joke to my friends that I gotta go home and pet my goldfish and then I can go do whatever I want, And of course that's a joke because I don't have a dog, I don't have anything. So, but I mean, sometimes I can be introverted to a fault, right? Where I don't get out and do networking like we're doing today. And that's where I get a little bit too introverted, so to speak. So I try and get out and be involved in groups and travel to different groups throughout the country. And it's a really interesting question, man.
If you could share any wisdom with the world, what would it be?
Business is really damn hard. And so don't do it. Like, just don't do it. Like, if you're thinking about whether to do it or whether you have it or whatever, you don't. Like, entrepreneurs never ask themselves that. Like, they were born that way. They don't feel risk. You know what I mean? Like, my mom teases me all the time. She's like, oh, I've wanted to start a business for 20 years and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Mom, entrepreneurs don't want to start a business for 20 years. Entrepreneurs quit their job and start a business, and they ask questions later. Business is about self-awareness. It's about knowing what you're really good at, better than anyone else at. I call it your core competency, and knowing what that is and staying in that lane and like maximizing that thing you're best at. And I'll tell you, after, since 21, I've owned businesses, and still to this day, the number one thing I have to think about is staying in my lane, doing what I'm best at, not getting distracted, not losing my focus, and focusing on my core competency, and then hiring people around me that have the core competencies that I don't have. And so, like, the last thing you should do is hire people you like, because they're probably like you. And the last thing you need is one more of you. You probably need people who have other competencies, right? So I'm like not organized. The number one person in my organization is killer with organizational skills. I'm not the greatest salesperson. My number two person in my organization is the best salesperson I've ever talked to. And without those two people, I wouldn't have a business. I would just have a mess. I would just have a job, And so, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a job, that you created for yourself, but to create a real company, you've got to have an intense amount of self-awareness, and it starts with knowing like what role you play in entrepreneurship.